Shrewd podcast Thursday live stream. We have a special guest. We have an old guest from back when we used to do monthly live streams. It's Johnny Cantola, former host of the Johnny Ray Show, and now he's you are the producer of Right Side Films.
I am the owner, director, producer. I wear a lot of hats there at Right Side Films. Started it about a little over a year ago. Wanted something a little different than the woke Hollywood stuff. So that's what we dabble in.
Sounds great. So this is what we're going to talk about today. In This Week in Satire, we're going to talk about how gubernatorial candidate Brian Kemp is challenging Governor Stacey Abrams. Which is always deserving of a good laugh. In our rants of the week, we're going somewhere a little bit darker. Unfortunately, we're talking about the police. We're talking about what the whole situation in Uvalde was, and what happened there, and why the police kind of used a lot of inaction, unfortunately. And then finally, today's going to be a bit of a shorter show. We're going to finish off with our douche of the week, and we're going to talk about Beto Male O'Rourke. I mean Robert Francis. Because I don't know where Beto comes from. Nobody does. All of that and more on the Shrewd Dudes podcast. The awkward silence is over. It's always like an awkward silence when I do the intro. Because Danny's just like, he now expects it. Because he's like, yep, I know that I have to not say anything because the intro is going on and, can't do anything. But, so, I'll let you talk about what you've been up to for the past year or so. And I'm going to do some technical jibber jabber.
All right. Well, basically, I let go of the podcast a little bit. The monotony of it seemed like every day was kind of the same old thing. So I kind of slowed back on that, and I started the film company. And right now, we're working on 3 projects. I am writing a Western uh, era drama television show that centers around a man who's basically struggling between his morals and the survival at the turn of the century. So going from the old west to kind of the new day, the new progression, and he basically has to decide whether he's gonna, go out a violent, bloody death and stick with how he's lived his entire life, or if he's gonna, change his course of action and kind of move with the times, if you will. And then we're working on a movie. It's called One Night in Tucson, and it's a comedy. It's about 2 friends that take a road trip and get into some crazy stuff on the way to Tucson. So, and then the third thing that we're working on is another TV show. It's kind of a comedy drama, and it's about a younger kid who grew up in music, doing rock music, and he's trying to break into the rock music business. And he picks up and moves, him and his brother and 2 friends, and they move out to Nashville and basically try and break into the scene of music. So working on that, we're kind of writing those out. We should start filming on the Western TV show, hopefully mid to late summer, and so it'll be out next year. And then hopefully the comedy movie, One Night in Tucson, hopefully it'll be out around mid next year. And then the other TV show will be out shortly after that. So we're doing a lot of things, and we're not trying to stay away from the woke stuff. So a lot of the stuff we have is more conservative, more not exactly right leaning, but not abortions and anti-gun. So you have that.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, you'll have to let us know, and we might have like a interesting watch party or something when
Yeah,
all that
definitely.
comes out. But we have a few things to talk about just as soon as I press copy and paste. So, as always, jumping in this week, we're going to start off with This Week in Satire. Because you always want to start off Thursday, right before the weekend, with a little bit of brevity. So, from the Babylon Bee, because the Babylon Bee is far surpassed the Onion in all forms of satire, Kemp prepares to face off against incumbent Governor Stacey Abrams. Gubernatorial hopeful Brian Kemp defeated Senator David Perdue and Dr. Candace Taylor in this week's Georgia primaries. Kemp and his team are now knee-deep in preparations to face off against sitting Governor Stacey Abrams for the governorship in a race that's sure to be an uphill battle. Kemp campaign manager Stone McRabernathy claims they are taking the gubernatorial challenge of Abrams very seriously. Abrams has been governor for 4 years now. She's got the experience, the clout, and the skin color. It's an uphill battle for sure. According to recent polling data, Kemp is experiencing early trouble in the gubernatorial race because of repeated unfounded claims that he's already governor. Political experts believe this may damage his chances if he doesn't recognize Governor Stacey Abrams as Georgia's supreme leader. I've been governor this whole time. What are you guys talking about? said a bewildered Kemp to reporters on CNN. I literally live in the governor's mansion. Abrams, who's been living on the street like a homeless person so she can remain grounded in the lives of the common people, says she's not worried about the November election. The amount of voters is admittedly alarming, but Kemp is a cisgendered white man who's never been on Star Trek. I'm a shoo-in. In publishing time, Kemp has been banned on Twitter for spreading dangerous disinformation that he signed legislation banning abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy. His campaign is not expected to recover. It's so good. Now, of course, for those who are not aware, those who've been living under a rock for the past 4 years, Kemp is actually the governor. Stacey Abrams claims that she's the governor, even though she lost by 50,000 votes, and she claims voter suppression, even though voter turnout has been, I think they now said it's the highest that it's ever been, and the Republicans are expected to have like a 7-point shift in terms of the polls. And there's been some reporting that Democrats are now voting for the Republicans because that's how bad things are in Biden's America.
Well, I don't know about you, but Stacey Abrams has been a fantastic governor of that state.
Yep.
I'm actually thinking of moving to Georgia just so that I can say I live under.
Well, and you can proudly, like make a TikTok video and say, I'm casting my vote for Governor Stacey Abrams.
Stacey Abrams is going to remain governor forever.
Yeah.
She's going to just die as governor.
Well, no, she'll be governor until she becomes president of Earth. Clearly.
Well, yeah. But then she'll double as the governor.
Oh.
You don't want to lose that.
She'll be, wow, amazing woman.
Her ghost will then take over the governorship of Georgia. So long ride for Georgians under Stacey Abrams.
But don't worry, it'll be just a wonderful trip the entire time.
Well, it'll be the eternity of love instead of just the summer of love. Like Seattle has. It'll be the eternity of love. Just burning buildings all the time, keep everything warm.
Yep.
Hot dogs and marshmallows.
Oh, clearly.
All the time.
Yep.
That's always good. And free things from Target. So
yep.
If you don't like that, you're not American.
Yes. Free things from Target. You'll just go in and you'll be going in with a calculator and be like, okay, I have to steal up to this amount because if I steal past that amount, then the police will actually charge me.
Then it becomes a crime. But as long as you stay, and I wonder, does that count tax? I don't know if that counts tax. Do I have to do that much math when stealing?
I don't know.
These are things I need to know, Governor.
Yeah.
I need to know.
Yeah, you have to have, clearly, you need a press conference to talk about how much stealing is too much.
Yes, how much thievery.
Oh my goodness.
And people are going to snip at that and they're going to think that we're crazy.
I know. But, Like, you think that what we're talking about is absolutely nonsense. You think what we're talking about is just completely off the wall. But the sad part is that thing about the $900, that's true in California. Thing about the rioting and the looting, the summer of love, that was 2020.
New York changed theirs as well. I think New York changed it to anything
Yeah, I think they did.
999, I think.
Yeah.
So New York, California, you can steal quite a bit, and I think that's just in one instance. So you could actually leave, put things in your car, go back for a second 999.
Well, I did hear that Target was actually, they were using a facial recognition software, and so that if people came back, then Target would be like, okay, you've already stolen this amount of merchandise.
You
and so you've stolen over your allotment of $900, and now we will call the cops on you.
Yes.
And it's like, oh my gosh.
24 hours between thievery.
Oh my goodness. The lengths that companies have to go to make sure that governments enforce the law.
Well, it's getting to a point where they're going to have to put up bulletproof glass to keep people from throwing chairs through it.
Well, and there might be even a point where they have to erect, where you actually have to unlock nearly everything. Yeah, like right now, of course, if you go to
you have to unlock cabinets to get shirts.
Yeah. Well, right now, of course, like if you go to Walmart, you have to unlock any sort of like high value tech.
Yeah.
And other things of that sort. But yeah, if these policies continue, then yeah, it'll be for shirts. It's like, okay, well, we'll just have employees that just walk down each aisle, and they're like, I can open that for you.
Yeah.
Because
I think personally, if I had my way, I would everything should just be online. Just
it does make things simple.
Store. Yeah, it's just if you want something, order it online. Well, I don't have a card. Sorry about your luck.
Yeah.
Go
to
the Pilgrim store.
At this point, like even with if you've been bad with a credit card, which I was when I was 18, of course, like you can a lot of companies and a lot of banks now have like the Visa debit, the MasterCard debit. Like I rarely use it just because I have a MasterCard.
From the time I turned 18 until just like, I don't know, 2 years ago, because I screwed up my, credit when I was 18. I was young, dumb. And I had a little green dot card.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get those.
Well, and of course, like, we always forget the founder of PayPal is Elon. Yeah. And I used PayPal for a while when I didn't have a credit card.
I have to use PayPal because my bank won't work with what's the other one? Cash App.
Yeah.
It won't work with Cash App. My bank's like, nope, no Cash App. So I have to use PayPal if I want to send a buddy of mine $10. Cash App or PayPal.
Yeah, that's interesting, but we do have to move on, and so now we are going to move into the rants of the week, and we're going to talk about some really serious, really unfortunate stuff.
Red alert.
Okay, so this is from the Daily Mail. Texas officials launch investigation into Uvalde police response to school shooting. Conflicting statements of a gunfight with the shooter, and videos show parents being held down by cops outside while kids were trapped with the gunman. So, of course, the shooter arrived at the school at 11:30 a.m. After crashing his truck, the resource officer at the scene failed to stop him. He locked himself in a 4th grade classroom where he shot dead 19 kids and 2 teachers. It took police at least an hour to breach the classroom to shoot him, and now it's claimed they needed a key to get into the room. As they struggled to get inside, parents were held back from the school by cops with tasers. In a new video, police are showing restraining one frantic man who asked them why they weren't in the school, and one of the cops yelled back, "We're taking care of it," who was holding other parents back from the scene. One law enforcement official anonymously revealed cops took so long to get in the classroom because they needed a key. And of course, it was only when they found one that they got inside. I think that we watched this earlier. Daily Mail does these with every shooting, and it's actually really handy how they go down. So he shot his grandmother at 11 a.m., stole the truck, crashed near 11:30, confronted by armed school cop, and dropped backpack with ammo, walked through the unlocked door, shot 2 cops in the hallway, walked into the classroom and barricaded door, said time to die before killing 19 kids and 2 teachers. Lead Border Patrol kills Ramos after door key, and of course announced that he is dead at 1:06. So I believe this is the video of the cops holding back parents. Yeah, they're restraining and detaining parents. So this is... I'm not a fan of this at all. Like, yes, we support the police when they are doing what their job is. And typically, most police forces, you have serve and protect. And if they're serving, if they're protecting, all the power to them. Defunding the police is stupid. But you needed a key. Like, I can understand if this is a hostage situation. If he's like, I'm going to hold these kids hostage until my demands are met. Then it's like, yeah, you wait outside, tense moments, negotiate, whatever. As soon as you start hearing those shots inside, it's time to breach.
Yeah, I agree. I can see both sides to a degree. And I know I'll catch a lot of flack from it, and it's an unpopular opinion. I do understand why cops were holding parents back.
Yeah, I do. Oh, I totally understand why the cops are holding the parents back.
You don't want to let parents go bum rush in school with the shooter, because then more people die.
Well, then you're allowing civilian casualties.
Yes, but at the same time, I think that it should have been a whole lot quicker for them to get in. There was no need for them to wait for a key. I don't think that the school was going to do too much crying if they broke a door.
Yeah.
He did quite a bit more damage with a firearm than they would have done to that door. So I do believe that they should have went in a lot quicker. Initially, the reason I thought it took so long was because he hadn't killed them yet. So I thought it was more of a hostage situation, and then he started killing people, and that's when they went in. Now, to find out that it wasn't that it was them waiting on a key is a huge deal. The fact that he made it past the first security guy is befuddling to me. Then to let alone get 2 more cops in the hallway is something that should not have happened. Not with an 18-year-old that had just gotten his guns. Yeah. There's no reason that 2 cops should have not got the drop on him.
Yeah. They should have been able... Like, it's surprising that... Because you wonder at how much training the guys actually had.
Well, and that's what comes with the defund the police movement that everybody was so in a uproar about.
That's true.
When you take away 70% of the funding for a police department, who are they going to hire? Here's the way I look at it. I make $17 an hour right now where I work. And cops generally starting pay is right around $17 an hour. Now, they put their lives on the line, hence even just this scenario. 2 cops lost their lives because they didn't have adequate training, because they can't get people to put their life on the line in a career for $17 an hour. Yeah. No matter how much you love the job, I've wanted to get into law enforcement my entire life. I worked for it all the way until I was over 21. I went to the military specifically with the intentions of getting out and going into law enforcement. And you could not pay me $17 an hour to go be a cop right now. Yeah. I would not do that. And that's what you get when you take away the funding from every police department that you can find. You're going to get people that are just happy to get $17 an hour. They're not going to care about the training. They're not going to care about the job. And then they're going to get shot in a hallway of a school by an 18-year-old goofball who posted all over Facebook that he wanted to kill his grandmother anyway 2 days prior to doing it.
Yeah. And I think he had sent out a message immediately following the fact that he killed his grandmother. He's like, killed my grandmother. And then
finally did it.
like right after
Old Brad
that.
deserved it.
And then I think he actually posted, I forget, I think it was a private message on Facebook. And the private message on Facebook was, okay, gonna kill some kids now.
Yeah.
It's like,
my question to anybody is this a gun problem, or is this a people not noticing evil behavior from people problem?
well, I think that
of all the mass shooters, that's what it is. They always post about it, they talk about it, they joke about it.
There's always
and nobody
signs.
ever talks about it. Nobody ever says, "Oh, maybe we should think about talking to a cop and say, hey, this guy over here, he's
a little sketch.
He's been talking me crazy." No, they don't. And then they want to cry, "We need gun control."
Yeah.
When that crazy loon bag who for 2 weeks has been talking about killing a bunch of kids in school actually
does it. Yeah. And of course, like a lot of these times when they're actually posting these things, these are sometimes a cry for help. It's just like, I'm posting these things because I want someone to stop me, because this is my drastic last effort plea for attention. And a lot of the time it's just like, we're going to ignore him. He's just like trying to get attention again. Oh, Mr. Crybaby. But I think, and Matt Walsh put this really well, in that we don't need gun control. We need fathers and we need community. Because so many of these shooters come from broken homes, from single parent households. Like you really feel for a lot of these single mothers, a lot of these single parents, a lot of them are putting in so much time and effort, so much work, but you're not going to provide the same security, the same environment as a dual parent household. It's going to be better for the kids 100%. And a lot of these individuals are suffering from a lack of a proper male model. And they're also suffering because the community that they're surrounded in has they have no interaction with their community, and they have no feedback or confrontation with those who would challenge them and be like, is this the way that you should be going? You should really confront the way that you're addressing life. Like it was talking about in earlier, when he would cut up his face, and one of his friends in high school was like, well, why would you cut up your face? And he's like, well, I just felt like it. It's like, okay, that kid that was told that he was cutting up his face because he felt like it, that should have been an immediate sign to be like, okay, you need to tell someone. It's like, this is a really big red flag for some sort of mental condition. And secondly, you need to be addressing this. It's not just something, it's like, okay, that's weird behavior. It's, okay, we need to have a serious discussion about why you're doing this to yourself, and why do you feel that this is something that's appropriate?
Well, we have a huge mental health problem in America as a whole. We patronize people that have actual mental diseases. We patronize them. We make fun of them. We joke about them. We make funny cartoon shows about them.
Hi?
And then people that don't have them are told that they have them, because it's easier to prescribe pills for somebody's stupid behavior than it is to diagnose them properly.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that we've come across in America. We're coddled to the fact that everybody's got a mental disease, and that's not the case. They instead of diagnosing every kid that can't sit still with ADHD, why don't you try looking at what they may really have or not have? Yeah. Maybe that's just a bad kid that needs a spanking.
Oh yeah.
But we can't spank them because CPS will come in and take your kid away. So our system is broken, but it's not broken in the places that the liberals and the
they say it
high
is.
Pollutants want to think it is.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, like Canada, we have a lot of the same issues. Our societies are very similar. It's just that, of course, firearms are a lot more difficult to acquire here, and so we have a lot more issues with knives. We have a lot more issues with non-firearm weapons, and we still have significant crime in a lot of these kind of minority communities. but it's not as highly publicized because the violence and the crime doesn't happen with guns.
Yeah. And that's what I actually just got into a debate on Facebook about.
You're always in a
People were
debate
saying,
on Facebook, Johnny.
We need gun control, and I'm like, no, we need people control.
Yes, we do.
That's what we need. And it was actually a cousin of mine who tried to tell me that Japan, who doesn't have readily accessible firearms, is so much better. Their crime rate is so much lower. Because I've looked it up, and I believe it's like 8% crime rate, and we're like at 111 or something. We're outrageous because America. But what he doesn't account for is that while gun violence is really low because only 1 in 500 people have a gun,
yeah,
they have mass stabbings.
Yeah,
they have stonings that you don't see. You have to look that stuff up because it's not a gun killing somebody, so they don't talk about it.
Yeah,
and it's how I say it all the time. Making something illegal is not going to stop the criminals. That's why they're criminals.
Yep.
So if you make guns illegal for me, the criminal down the street is
they're
still
still
going
to
to
get
have
them.
the gun. They're still going to have the gun. And then it's just going to make me become a criminal because I'm going to go and commit a crime to get a gun. So you're ineffectively, you're transitioning law-abiding citizens to criminals, which ultimately is what the left wants.
Yeah.
Think of any movie where the liberals took the future. Think about it. Judge Dredd. That was a liberal society that was crime infested, and they contained it into one center part of the city. If you look at Escape from LA, a liberal, terrible place, ran into the ground and forced to be citizen criminals. And that's exactly where they want us to go. And that's where we'll end up if they keep pushing the agendas that they are.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, you really need to address the root of the problems. Like it's the exact same thing when it comes to addressing claims of systemic racism. It's like, well, the blacks are incarcerated at far higher rates. It's like, yes, they are. But they're also responsible for the majority of crimes. Like, you can't just say, we're going to look at this whole situation and we're going to try and say, the tippy top, the top of the iceberg, that's what we're going to try and address. Instead of, we're going to try and take it out from its base and eliminate the problem entirely.
Yeah.
But such are liberal solutions for modern problems.
Yep.
But
that's what it'll continue.
Yep, it'll continue until we address these things. But one way that we can address these things is what's happened in Oklahoma. And of course, Johnny over there is a native Oklahoman. And it was like, oh, this is so serendipitous that we have him as a guest host on the show tonight. So let's talk about what's going on in Oklahoma and have a mini celebration.
Red alert.
Nope. I left my rant of the week thing up. I was like, nope, I'm not ranting about this. Not ranting at all. The Oklahoma governor signs bill making it a felony to perform an abortion. Under the bill, anyone convicted of performing an abortion would face up to 10 years in prison and a $100,000 fine. Kevin Stitt signed a bill into law on Tuesday. On Tuesday? Why is this from April 12th? Okay. I guess this is an older story. Oh no, which takes effect 90 days. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, so it takes effect. Yeah. Makes an exception only for the abortion. Oh, because the legislature just adjourned. Okay, that's why. So now it's taking effect. So it makes an exception only for an abortion performed to save the life of the mother. Abortion rights advocates say the bill signed by the GOP governor is certain to face a legal challenge. Its passage comes as the conservative U.S. Supreme Court considers ratcheting back abortion rights that have been in place for nearly 50 years. We want to outlaw abortion in the state of Oklahoma, he said during a signing ceremony for the bill flanked by anti-abortion. I love how NBC is just like pushing that bias. Lawmakers, clergy, and students, I promised Oklahomans that I would sign every pro-life bill that hits my desk, and that's what we're doing here today. Under the bill, anyone convicted of performing an abortion would face up to 10 years, again, in prison and a $100,000 fine. Senator Nathan Dahm, a broken-arrow Republican now running for Congress, who wrote the bill, called it the strongest pro-life legislation in the country right now, which effectively eliminates abortion in Oklahoma. Wondrous. Wondrous. Actually, let's...
One thing I want to make sure to point out,
Yep.
because it will come up, is that little part that says it does not authorize the punishment of any woman receiving the abortion. Because that is what the pro-choice people love to jump to. Is you're trying to imprison the women that need these abortions, or else they're going to die. Not one bill passed has said that they were going to criminalize the woman receiving the abortion. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. No, I was looking up the number of abortions total in the state of Oklahoma. So Oklahoma has on average about 3,000 to 4,000 a year. And if we're going by the stats of the Guttmacher Institute, which I usually don't because they're very biased, but even if we were saying that 96-97% of all abortions would now be outlawed because there will be some that sneak through due to kind of sketch health of the mother claims or sketch rape claims. But still, that's still going to be a lot of kids saved each year, and Oklahoma's just the start.
Yep.
There's going to be, like, we're up here, I'm trying to get a discussion together with some pro-life Canadian leaders. And I'm like, hey, let's have a talk, because look at what they're doing down south. Look at what's about to happen. Look at the progress and the dedication the pro-life movement has had in the United States, and the fantastic, massive victory which they're about to achieve. And what has Canada done? Canada has the most liberal abortion laws in the world, and we pay for it through every stage. So
Yeah.
I am absolutely ecstatic for Oklahoma. It's wonderful, but we still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Well, at least we do. You don't. You have it great now.
We got a lot of states that we got to work on, because it's not just Oklahoma that kills babies. Well, not now, but I know Georgia is real close to already outlawing it. I mean, I think they're at like 5 weeks or something. That the heartbeat bill that they passed. Most of the southern states, I think they said there was like 19 states total that, as soon as Roe v. Wade gets ratcheted back, will go to exactly what Oklahoma did. And I cannot wait. And here's the thing, people freak out about this Roe v. Wade thing, and all it boils down to is that you'll have to rely on your state to be okay with you killing a baby. I no longer have to pay for somebody to kill their baby.
Yep.
So you have to drive to a state. If you don't live in a liberal state, you have to drive to a state that allows it.
Yep.
Sorry about your luck. Maybe you should, take caution.
Yeah. And of course, like with Roe v. Wade likely being overturned, and then in November, based on everything that we've been seeing, and barring the fact that we're going to trust that we're going to have a decent election, free and fair, which we can't say much on because we're still streaming on YouTube. But winky winky, you all know what we're talking about. The last YouTube account we had was taken down because we're like, can we all agree that this wasn't free and fair? And that was enough for them to suspend us.
YouTube does not like...
It does not like any mention of that. Oh, no.
Free and fair, that's all we say.
Yeah, free and fair. Wonderful, just wondrous beyond measure. Nothing wrong ever happened. Clearly. So, yes, barring that, it looks like there's going to be a massive victory. Looks like Republicans are going to take the House, going to take the Senate. And as long as you don't, the House and the Senate are not filled with kind of what sort of like the Mitch McConnell Republicans.
Squish Republicans.
Yeah.
What we call them.
The Democrats are doing something, but we're not going to do much to counter them because we're just here to make sure that they don't do anything. It's like, no, you're Republicans. They voted you in to do stuff. Now do it. And there could be a push if there isn't too much blowback from Roe v. Wade being overturned, that there could be even further restrictions passed by the House and the Senate. It's a long shot. I get that. But then again, back in 2020 when Amy Coney Barrett got nominated, we're all like, oh, it's a long shot that Roe v. Wade is overturned. Like, it's kind of a shot in the dark. We all know that it's probably not going to happen. Now it's just like, oh my gosh, it's happening.
Yeah. It was 2 years ago. We were like, well, we'll put her in there. Maybe she'll side with us. Maybe she won't. Maybe she'll just stick to the middle. And then 2 years later, they're like, we don't really like this.
Yep.
I don't think we're going to keep
this. I had to admonish myself, and because 2 years ago I had a conversation with the guy who runs the Dank Pro-Life Memes channel on Facebook and Twitter. And so he and I were having this conversation. I'm like, okay, like, do you honestly think that it's going to be overturned? And he's like, no. And he's like, I don't see any chance of this. And I'm like, we have to admonish ourselves. We were wrong, but we've never been so happy to be wrong.
I have to do it too, because honest to God, I've said it for 10 years. I've said Roe v. Wade will never be overturned.
Mm-hmm.
It'll, at the very least, they might try and, some of the states do the heartbeat
kind of
bill,
loosen it, and yeah.
That's about it. And I never thought it would be overturned, and here we are on the precipice of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's right there.
Right there.
And half the country will go up in flames because.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Danny and I were talking on Tuesday about how there's like threats to burn down the Supreme Courts and burn down churches.
They've already doxed all the justices.
All the justices, and they're all kind of in hiding until it comes out, and yeah. That's just wonderful people, pro-abortees.
They are the tolerant.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because we're the bigoted ones.
They tolerate a lot more than any other side does. I mean, they're very tolerant when they're yelling at you.
Yes. Well, and I'm sure that we'll see an equivalent, because I think in the past 30 years, there's been 30 or 40 accounts of quote-unquote pro-life violence where they've had bomb threats and attacks on abortionists, and I'm like, yeah, we're going to see that amount of violence in 30 days.
Yeah, I'm looking at maybe a week.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw how the Black Lives Matter movement tended to go. They're probably going to have that a whole lot quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, things are going to be hard. You're going to stand strong against the rising tide of hateful leftists. Yep. But what's new? Not much.
For a few years now. I think we're getting pretty close.
Yeah, we're getting used to it now.
Yeah, being professionals at it.
Yeah. All right. So now, let's switch over to the news you may have missed. So we're going to quickly go through them, and I'll just read them. So, first off, from Timcast, Indiana legislature overrides governor's veto to enact transgender sports regulations. So the ACLU has already challenged the bill in court, citing Title IX. So legislatures in Indiana enacted a bill requiring students to compete in sports teams that correlate with their biological sex. Why not? Minutes later, the ACLU of Indiana filed a lawsuit arguing the bill is a form of gender-based discrimination and violates Title IX. So House Bill 1041 requires school corporations, public schools, non-public schools, and certain athletic associations to have a designated male, men's, or boys teams, female, women's, or girls teams, and coeducational or mixed teams. And of course, they're required to compete on teams that correlate with their biological sex at birth in accordance with their genetics and reproductive biology. Fantastic. We won't have other incidences like William Thomas just decimating the women.
So they're saying we should do what we've been doing for the last, 250
basically
years.
Up until the past, 3 years.
Yeah. No, kudos.
Yeah. Every time I think of this, it's just if they want to have, the fact that they're allowing a mixed league. I'm like, yeah, sure, if you want to compete in a mixed league, where you think you're a woman and you want to compete in a mixed league against a group that's both men and women, then you're still going to get your ass kicked.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that that is probably going to be an empty league.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that, first of all, there's far less women pretending to be men and going into sports.
Mm-hmm.
So that section's pretty null and void. And the guys who think they're women are going to go in against a bunch of other guys who think they're women, because no woman is going to willingly walk in and go, oh yeah, that 270-pound woman with a beard looks like I could take her.
Oh yeah, totally. Big time.
So I gotta say that's probably gonna be a null league.
Yeah. Won't have too much of a following, but then again, now that is women's basketball.
Yeah.
Same point. We both knew where each other were going.
Yep. I knew that's where it was going. That's where it goes.
Yeah.
Well, nobody goes to the game.
Yeah.
They usually go to the bathroom when those games are on.
Yeah. So now we're talking about Walmart. Walmart apologizes for selling Juneteenth-themed ice cream. It drew outrage with its ice cream, which is part of an assortment of other Juneteenth-themed items, including shirts and decorations. It's apologized for selling Juneteenth-themed ice cream. The multinational company offered an apology on Tuesday amid outrage over its celebration edition Juneteenth ice cream, a red velvet and cheesecake-flavored dessert sold under its Great Value label. The label on the ice cream pint read, "Share and celebrate African American culture, emancipation, and enduring hope." I wouldn't want to sell like.
Mad about that?
Yes, they were saying that it was that they didn't check with like diverse people.
They didn't check with the black people of America to think that was okay?
Yeah. Well, I think, and other people have been saying this, it's like, yep, they're supported by Walmart. And apparently being supported by Walmart is just too much, and it somewhat takes away from their privileged victim class.
Well, first of all, I'd like to think that the reason they got upset is because it was Great Value and not Bluebell. Because I'd be pissed if Great Value wanted to support anything I was about.
Yes.
Great Value.
Well, yeah, they did say that Ben and Jerry's was okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought Ben and Jerry's had, like, you know, black chocolate chip and Asian hazelnut whatever. And, I mean, I thought they covered a whole spectrum. So they're okay, but Great Value's not, apparently.
Yeah. If it wasn't Great Value, gosh darn it, I'd want to taste that ice cream. Because red velvet cheesecake, oh, that'd be good.
I think it would be too much. That's diabetes in a cup.
It is diabetes in a cup, but it's something you want to try once.
Like one bite of that, I'm on the ground. I'm hospital bound. So I'm
just have the insulin shot ready.
I think smelling it would probably put me out. So if you take that one,
just might.
Bluebell ever decides that they're going to come out with the Juneteenth.
Yep. Oh my goodness. Yep. Always interesting. Trying to fill the space. So, next story. Oh, this one made me pissed. Obama slammed as tone deaf for linking Uvalde massacre to George Floyd. So, former President Obama was hammered for what critics say was tone deaf post linking the deadly school shooting to the second anniversary of George Floyd. It's not a murder. It was manslaughter. If that. Former president shared the message on Twitter Wednesday in the wake of the massacre. As we grieve the children of Uvalde today. Alright, let's see if I can do a Barack Obama voice. We should take time to recognize that 2 years have passed since the murder of George Floyd under the knee of a police officer. Obama tweeted, "His killing stays with us all to this day, especially to those who loved him." I'm not great.
More of a Bill Clinton.
It was.
Bill Clinton.
It was. I'm not great at the Obama voice.
But Bill Clinton is just the white Obama, so it's okay.
Yeah. Okay. I pass.
Yeah. You pass just barely.
Just
like
squeaking through. Yeah. No, I'm much better at like the Bernie Sanders voice than Obama.
I was just fixing to talk about this when we talked about the shooting, but I decided not to, and I'm glad I didn't because then it came back up.
Yeah.
This is the absolute most ludicrous thing that anybody could have said. And had it been Donald Trump, who wouldn't have tweeted it because I don't think he's on Twitter, but had it been any Republican, conservative, if Ted Cruz had said this,
Yeah.
he would have been canceled immediately
Mm-hmm.
because you cannot take the deaths of fourth grade children. My daughter just graduated fifth grade.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they are just a year younger than her.
Yeah.
You cannot take the deaths of 8 and 9-year-olds and compare them to a lifetime career habitual criminal and drug addict who it's already been proven, A, wasn't murder, manslaughter at best, and I still don't even agree with that because
Yeah.
I think had he not
It's loose.
been accosted by the cops, he would have
He
died.
probably
in
still would have
10
died
days
because of all the drug interactions that he had in his body.
from the elephant-sized fentanyl tranquilizer he took 20
Yep.
minutes into being stopped. But you cannot compare those two. They say apples and oranges. That wasn't even apples and oranges. That is apples and freaking drywall. That's what that was.
Drywall.
There is nothing you could possibly
Yeah.
compare between the two, one tragedy and one guy who died.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, like, every time I think of George Floyd now, I think of that mural.
Oh yeah.
And I'm
The one
like,
that got struck
when
by
I think of,
lightning.
when they got struck by lightning, middle of a sunny day with no rain, and the only thing that got damaged was his face. And it's like, that's a sign, people. Stop
That was
glorifying
God's
God's
God
judgment.
saying, never forget.
Yeah.
That was him saying, never forget.
Never forget, stop glorifying this criminal.
Yeah. The left has a tendency to do that. They glorify.
They glorify terrible, terrible people.
Sexual predator.
Mm-hmm.
They glorify anybody who is not on the right. If you're not on the right and you die for any reason, they will glorify you. It doesn't matter if you touch kids. It doesn't matter if you killed your grandmother. I guarantee you, 2 months from now, if you fish through the Uvalde shooter, his Facebook page, and he says, I support Bernie Sanders, they will glorify him, even though he murdered children in cold blood.
Yeah.
They will glorify him.
Yeah. And of course, like, we were talking about this on Tuesday. Like, George Floyd, the Democrats, the liberal establishment media will never let us forget it.
No.
But they will try, like, once they've realized that they're not going to push, that they're not going to have massive amounts of success pushing for gun control, they're going to memory hole this shooting.
Yep. Just
And-
like they did Sandy Hook, just like they did
Mhm.
Parkland, just like they've done the Orlando shooting, just like they did the Las Vegas shooting.
Yep.
That once they realize that it's not a gun problem, it's a stupid person problem,
Yeah.
they're going to drop this. You will not hear about. They don't talk about Parkland. That
No.
was what, a year ago or 2 years ago, something like that. They don't talk about the Timber Heights one in Texas was a year ago.
Yeah.
They don't talk about that one anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They don't talk about the Aurora, Colorado shooting at the
Yep.
theater. They don't talk about Boulder. They don't talk about any of those anymore.
Yeah.
There's not a every year memorial for those kids.
Yeah.
But there will be for George Floyd.
And there
And
will be
that's
for
the
George
problem with
Floyd,
the
and there
fire.
will be for the Buffalo Massacre, because they're going to focus way more heavily on the Buffalo Massacre, because they'll be like, okay, well, gun control is not a narrative that we can run with, but we can continue to try and push this white replacement Tucker Carlson garbage that they've been spewing for the past few weeks, because that guy was actually a white supremacist. Yeah, he was actually a white supremacist. Whereas all these other people were just heavily disturbed individuals that were
Or minorities.
and minorities, and they were suffering because of a lack of proper influence from community and from parents, and that led them to lash out, and devastating consequences were a result.
Yep.
But the media doesn't care. The media has an agenda to push, and if lives get lost, they are more than willing to stand on the graves of the dead.
Yep. They've done it for years.
Mm-hmm. But, moving on. Arizona sends kids as young as 10 to gender and sexuality chat rooms. This one's messed up. So the Department of Education directs students to LGBTQ themed chat rooms for children as young as 10 to discuss gender and sexuality as part of its student resources. They're part of the ADOE's efforts to support LGBTQ use. They were put together with the help of members and allies of the community according to the ADOE website. It directs students to numerous resources, including local clubs, guides for gender transitions, and chat rooms. Both of the chats linked have moderators, either volunteer or staff, monitoring conversations, some of whom work at LGBTQ centers. So the Gender Spectrum chat room advertises online groups for trans, non-binary, and gender-expansive youth, and be joined by video, audio, or chat. Discussion groups are divided into age groups and facilitated by trained volunteers. And I believe there is something in here how they can... There's like a quick exit button. The site also has a quick escape button at the bottom of the page, which takes users immediately to a blank user page. So it's purposely linked and purposely going to be used to try and hide anybody having these discussions from their parents. And the Department of...
Why would you need a quick escape button?
Yep.
That seems a little odd to me.
Well, it's a massive red flag to anybody who's like, I actually care what my kids are doing, and I care about the future of my children, whereas the Department of Education is just like, don't tell your parents. Like, on Tuesday we talked
they've
about...
already done that.
Yeah, on
They've
Tuesday
been
we...
doing that with the book.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's plenty of stuff that they've been doing. There was a thing we were watching on Tuesday about this like infant psychoanalyst, and she was talking with other educators, and she's like, okay, we have to like push in children that they shouldn't be talking to their parents about anything we discuss in school, and that they should only be having these discussions with us because we care more than their parents do. She's like, we have to tell children that having topics about sexuality and gender and LGBTQ and all of that is not good to have with your parents because your parents could be bigots. It's like, you don't own my kids, you crazy groomer.
And you, person, could be a loom job.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you very likely are.
You could be a person that will catch hands if I see you telling my kid not to talk to me. I should be the only person my child talks to about sexuality and their feelings of who they like and don't like and how they might feel.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have anything to do with being a bigot. It has to do with telling them basic biology.
Yes. Well, and of course, it also has to do with parents, as you and I both are. We have a desire to raise our children to be moral, upstanding individuals, and we want to be a primary portion and part of our children's lives. We want to have these discussions because we want to make sure that we're raising them with a proper moral framework. These teachers don't care.
And on top of that, you want to raise your kid to follow in the beliefs that you believe. I mean, that's been society for 200 years.
Yeah.
Sorry, my cat's crazy. It's been society for 200 years. Nobody wants to say, okay, I'm a Catholic, but I'm going to raise my kid to be a Protestant. It doesn't happen. 99.999% of the time, what you are religion-wise, your kids are going to probably be religion-wise. That's just how society has always been.
Yep.
So it's not about being a bigot, it's about raising your kid how you feel they need to be raised, and it's nobody's business unless it harms somebody else.
Yep.
Whether my daughter believes that she's a boy or a girl doesn't harm anybody else.
Yeah.
So why anybody has a say in how my daughter should talk to me and not her teacher or her counselor I'll tell you what, if you feel like you want to punch a bully in the face, go talk to your counselor. That's what they're there for.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you need to be talking to your parent.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, 100%.
Or parent in most cases.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes. Thanks to the government for
Yes.
incentivizing single motherhood. Good job.
Yep.
I
All
love
right.
it.
So moving into a small amount of Canadian stories, but are still very relevant for Americans. Half of Canadians struggling to feed their families, according to this survey. Nearly 50% of Canadians are finding it difficult to feed their families amid record high inflation rates, which have impacted the cost of groceries, according to a new survey. Recent Angus Reid Institute research found that 49% of respondents are finding it difficult or very difficult to feed their families amid rising food prices. That number is up 13% since the last time the Angus Reid conducted a poll in 2019. In March, the food inflation rate rose 8.7% year over year, according to Stats Canada. Meat and dairy products appear to be the hardest hit. So, this is, of course, very similar to what's going on in the States, and we seem to be evading the next story about the baby formula shortage, but I think that's also coming to Canada. But, yeah, inflation in Canada is brutal, from meat, dairy, gas prices. Like, what is the cost per gallon in Oklahoma right now?
For gas?
Yeah.
I just paid $4.08 a gallon, and I think the average is $4.60, something like that. I'd have to look it up, but I think it's like somewhere around $4.60.
The average? Oh, around average for the States.
Yeah, for the States.
Okay. So, all right. What is the conversion rate from U.S. to Canadian at this time? Let's see who pays more. 128.
Wow.
So, yeah, I pay more.
Yep.
Yeah, you pay
slightly more.
You pay the equivalent of about $1.38 Canadian a liter, whereas my prices, because I pay $1.68 a liter, so that's divided by $1.28 to get to American. So I pay $1.31 American per liter, which per gallon is $4.96. And we're the cheapest in the country.
Wow.
Because we produce the stuff.
Yeah, that's our problem. We could produce it, but, we're stupid.
Well, if you think you're stupid, like, Alberta has one of the biggest natural deposits of oil and natural gas in the world, but every other province doesn't want us to use it. BC won't let us build a pipeline to the Pacific. Quebec won't let us build a pipeline to the Atlantic. And then Biden, with the Northern Gateway shutdown, made it so we can ship to the United States. It's just like, everybody hates us.
Yeah. Well, that's because we're under the presidency of somebody with the IQ of a
kumquat?
So, honestly, like, we should not have this much inflation. There's no reason in the history of history should we have this much inflation.
Yep.
2 years after we had the absolute greatest economy we've had in 50 years.
Yep.
But I give Joe Biden a lot of credit. He screwed this country up quicker than even I thought he would.
Yep. Nobody thought it would go bad this fast.
How you guys feel, because you guys have had the same guy.
Yeah, we've had the blackface Hitler up here for quite a few years, and
so
unfortunately, there are enough people in Canada that support him. This, like, no matter what. Basically, the problem is, of course, up here in Canada. Just brief rundown for anybody who doesn't know. There are like 3 media sources in Canada that are not paid off by the government. And I don't mean just like, okay, you get subsidies. No. The government funds them.
Yeah, the government's like, hey, this is our station now.
Yep. So all of the mainstream, like Global, CTV, CBC, the National Post, all of them get a cut from the government, and the government decides what they print.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why so many Canadians are like, oh yeah, Trudeau's doing a good job. And then it's like, you talk to anybody who doesn't watch or listen to any of those media sources, and they're like, Trudeau is the worst prime minister of all time, ever.
Guy's literally death in blackface.
Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the guy, like, I'm sure you probably heard little inklings of what happened this February.
All I hear about Trudeau is when he does something stupid,
Yep.
which is starting to be more and more.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be like once every 6 months, and now it's like once every 2 months.
Yeah. No, but the biggest problem is, of course, up here in Canada, is that the RCMP is sort of like the FBI, except the RCMP are used much more frequently than the FBI. The FBI, it's like, okay, like, we'll invest major crimes. The RCMP, it's like anywhere that's not a major city, the RCMP are involved. There are tens of thousands of RCMP officers, and they are basically right under the command of the Prime Minister. Which is why in February, when he invoked the Emergencies Act, he could basically do whatever he wanted. And the RCMP are just like, it's okay. Like, we'll do it. It's like, no. You're literally running over an old woman, and you're excusing it. And the really annoying part about that, just to go on a little bit of a tangent, they were like, there was a whistleblower of like text threads that they were having, and they're like, yeah, it was so much fun to run over that old woman, like, we should do it again tomorrow. It's like, what? Like, you're supposed to be supporting law and order in our country, and you're literally celebrating running over an old woman on it with a walker.
Wow.
Yeah. But even more about Canada, Ontario Factor. So this is our baby formula shortages. Sends baby formula to China while Canadian families suffer shortages. A Kingston, Ontario factory is sending baby formula it produces to China while Canadian families deal with shortages. The factory, Royal Canadian Milk, which is opposite from the Royal Canadian Mint, uses Canadian dairy to make the formula and was given $225 million in taxpayer money. They are owned by a Chinese company, Feihe International, according to True North. So, the international company is the largest domestic producer of formula for infants and young children in the People's Republic of China, and the company recently celebrated its 56th year of business, the plant's website says. It will manufacture formula for infants and young children using both cow dairy and goat dairy, building local supply chains to benefit the Canadian economy. Most of our production will be for export. We intend to develop nutritional products for the North American market as well. So, it's very similar to, of course, what happened in the States when they discovered that pallets of formula was being given to illegal immigrants.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they wonder why. I mean, I assumed when this first started, when I first heard about the formula shortage, I assumed that it was kind of like the great toilet paper shortage of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But then I found out that they were giving pallets to people crossing the border in the middle of the night with 18 kids and 4 adults and driving a Winnebago, and that befuddles me at how you can have the shortage and see that happening and not think, maybe our border should be
secure,
closed.
Secure or closed.
Letting them come in and then we've incentivized them already. I mean, friggin' New York giving illegal immigrants like $100,000 or some crap.
Yeah.
You got California that's like, hey, we give you free houses. And now you got, baby formula for families that have one baby and then 16 8-year-olds in strollers. So I don't understand how you could see both sides and not think probably should consider this a problem. But we don't.
Yeah.
We think, it's like people are like, oh yeah, pallets to illegal immigrants. Why don't I have baby formula on the shelf at Walmart? Well, they gave them to the illegal immigrants, and they're like, oh, well, I'm upset about this not having formula thing, but those immigrants, they needed it too, so we'll be okay with that.
Yeah. Utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. And it's the sad part is, and it's so obvious to anyone who realizes what's going on, it's to build a voter bloc, it's to build a voter base, because they realize they're losing out with normal everyday Canadians and normal everyday Americans.
Yep.
And they're trying to push for, if we can get people to come into this country, if we can allow them to become citizens expeditedly, or if we can allow them to vote in a less than legal fashion, then we have a whole bunch of extra voters, and we didn't have to work that hard for it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they've done. I know down here, they tried it with Cubans. When Cubans came in, they had open arms. Cubans, yes, you guys will vote Democrat. And the Cubans were like, we know socialism when we see it.
And we don't want that.
We're going to go over here. And then they were like, to heck with Cubans. We don't like Cubans. Cubans are stupid.
Yeah, I always thought that was, like, I do remember back a while ago, like, when Cuba was having their massive issues. And I think with Xavier Becerra, he's like, yes, we do not want to be granting, what's the word? Asylum.
Immunity?
Asylum.
Yeah.
And he's like, we want to think twice before granting asylum to Cubans. They're like, but you were totally fine with granting it to, like, Mexicans and Nicaraguans and Hondurans
the Hondurans and the Guatemalans that just showed
and MS-13 gang members that are bringing over kids that aren't theirs. They get, asylum for them, but for Cubans suffering under socialism, no bueno.
No. See, but for what, it's been since 1950 something, we've been allowing Cubans to have asylum as soon as they touch American soil.
Yep.
And now they're like, no. We don't like that border being crossed.
Yep.
Okay, if it's a water to land border, no crossing. Okay, it's got to be land to land, and you got to have a little darker skin.
Yep, got to have a little darker skin, and of course you have to have a cell phone, and your kid has to be starving because you've been, marching them through, like, 100+ heat.
Nikes.
Yeah, and Nikes.
And backpacks with Dora the Explorer on them.
Yeah.
We like those.
Yeah, we like those who want free stuff.
And not only will they vote for Democrats, but then they'll kill people and do very violent crimes.
Unfortunately, yes.
It's like a win-win.
Yep. Win-win, because then they'll do the violent crime, and then you can push for gun control while they're at it.
Yes, exactly.
Just like Beto. Our douche of the week. All right. Oh, I forgot to switch stories. That's all right. So, this is a news conference that Governor Abbott and numerous other officials in Texas were doing on shooting updates. This was from yesterday, and Beto decided to interrupt it, so we're going to watch some of that, and you're going to be pissed.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Sit down.
You're out of line and an embarrassment.
Sit down and don't play this stuff.
Shooting is right now, and you are doing nothing.
No, he needs to get his ass out of here. This isn't the place to talk this over.
This is totally predictable when you.
Sir, you're out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Please leave this auditorium.
I think that's the mayor. Oh, no, he has a badge.
I can't believe you're a sick son of a bitch that would come to a deal like this to make a political issue. It's on assholes like you. Why don't you get out of here?
Of course, Beto O'Rourke has only one skill, and it's to get in front of a camera.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
Honestly, I'm shocked that he didn't do a kickflip up onto the stage and do his talking.
Yeah. So Democratic candidate ejected after accusing Governor Greg Abbott of an inaction on guns. So the two men running to be Texas governor clashed angrily over gun control on Wednesday as America's second mass shooting in 2 weeks reignited the debate, blah, blah, blah. So he got after him and accused it of doing nothing to curb gun violence in the States. And he stated from the floor, "You are doing nothing. This is totally predictable. This is on you until you choose to do something different. This will continue to happen," O'Rourke said after being removed from the front of the room. "Someone needs to stand up for the children of the state, or they will continue to be killed, just like they were killed in Uvalde yesterday. The massacre was the second such event in 11 days. So, what a putz.
Hispanic power.
Hispanic power. No, like, Beto O'Rourke, he's the laughing stock of the Democratic Party, aside from maybe AOC. AOC is...
I think he's got her beat only because people on the right and the moderates don't laugh at AOC. We cringe at AOC.
That's true.
With Beto, we literally... I couldn't watch that without laughing. I know what he was saying was asinine, and I should have wanted to reach through the screen and punch him in his big old head.
Yep.
But I didn't, because all I could do was laugh, because he is a giant clown. That is what he is.
Everything that Beto does is kind of a joke upon itself.
Yeah,
like,
it's for me, I feel like Beto wakes up in the morning, wakes up and he goes, "Bro, good morning, man. Like, what can I do today to be an idiot?"
Yeah.
And then whatever comes to his mind,
he does.
He hops on a skateboard and he rides out to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and Beto, like, you look at this instance, and it's like, this is not your typical town hall. This is not your, okay, we're going to have a discussion about gun control. We're going to, like, that might have been a little more appropriate if he had actually been like, okay, I'm going to ask a question. Or, like, we can have a debate about this.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It might have been acceptable.
Well,
this was, like, literally just a press conference.
Well, it was a press conference, and it was meant to be informative to, like, people in the town, to parents, to family members. Be like, okay, this is what we've uncovered so far. Like, we haven't found all the kids. We haven't, like, there are still some people that are missing. Like, we want to make sure that everyone is informed as possible, so we're not having a plethora of issues. And likely to be like, okay, we're also maybe looking into, of course, we talked about in our rants of the week, about police inaction and measures that could be used to prevent such crises in the future, such as spending some money on armed guards or the like other methods that have been proposed to reduce gun crime in gun-free zones.
Yeah.
So that's what the meeting was for, and Beto took that and said, I can use this as a publicity stunt to push my agenda and push my narrative, and I can use it, and I can stand on the graves, just as Barack Obama did, just as Whoopi did, just as all these other individuals. They're just like, oh, Republicans are quote-unquote doing nothing. And it's like, well, they're doing something. They're just not addressing the problem or not attempting to address the problem in a way which you endorse. Because the way which you want to endorse from Beto O'Rourke, and I'm quoting this jackass and saying, heck yeah, we're coming for your AK-47s, your AR-15s. Like, what a putz.
Yeah.
We know what your solution is. We know that it's to take away the rights of Americans to defend themselves from criminals. And you're just like, yep, if you're not...
Time I checked, Republicans don't have the House. Republicans don't have the Senate. Republicans aren't the president.
Yeah.
Why have none of them pushed legislation?
Yeah.
None of them have. So you can't very well sit there and say that Republicans aren't doing anything, but we're doing what we can because we are looking for solutions to the underlying problems. No, we're not going to take away guns and say, oh, the guns, take them away because some jackoff killed somebody. No, we are literally looking at doing heavier mental checks.
Yep.
We're looking at how long it takes to get guns. We've done that. That's stuff that we have proposed.
Yeah.
but it's never enough for the Democrats.
Yeah, because they propose all these things, like they say universal background checks. It's like, well, that's already in existence. They say,
that's
and
already been done.
it wouldn't have stopped this 18-year-old because he didn't have a criminal record.
Exactly.
A lot of these people do not have a criminal record until they decide to perform a shooting like this, or an incident, or a violent crime. So, doing these universal background checks, doing a universal gun grab, like they did in Australia and the UK. Australia had a brief period of time where crime went down and then went back up. The UK had a spike in crime. And I've actually watched a video in Australia because they didn't just disarm their regular civilians, they disarmed their cops in most situations. And there was a guy armed with a knife. There were 10 cops surrounding him because none of them had guns. They were all just waiting, and they all kind of pinned him in this one area. And then eventually one of the officers drove him over with their car.
Yeah,
and that's how they
because they
subdued
had to
him
use
because
the
they didn't
closest
have
thing
any
they
other real
could.
weapons.
Yeah, they had to use the closest thing they could to subdue the guy because, contrary to popular belief, when cops don't have guns and a criminal does have something,
Yep.
generally the criminal's going to win in that scuffle.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But whenever I think of Beto O'Rourke, just a little added silliness. I love Freedom Tunes so flipping much. And of course, we here at the Shrewd podcast love Freedom Tunes. And we're just going to watch this. Ben Shapiro defending family from Beto O'Rourke. Because it's just that good.
Beto O'Rourke does not get to raise my child. And if he tries, I will meet him at the door with a gun. That is insane.
Ben, hola, it's Beto. I'm here to raise your child. Ben.
Welcome to the rice fields, okay, folks?
What is that, a cork gun?
It's California compliant.
No civilian should be able to own that. What the H? Give me your guns.
No.
Dang it. Ben, it's for the kids.
No.
Dang it. Ben, I'll be your best friend.
No.
Dang it. Come on. Just give me your freaking guns. Gosh.
You didn't say Simon Says.
Simon says give me your freaking guns.
No.
Dang it. Ben, your synagogue has been opposing gay marriage publicly. That's not cool. You're promoting homophobia. Gosh. Idiot.
At least I don't pretend to be something I'm not, Robert Francis.
Ben, we've been over this. You need to stop dead-naming me.
Okay, but Robert, you need to understand that what you're doing here is using the threat of state force through means of selective taxation as leverage to coerce churches into modifying their teachings. Do you want the boogaloo? Because that's how you get the boogaloo, okay, folks?
Ben, if your synagogue doesn't teach your child about LGBTQ rights, where will they learn that they might be a woman trapped in a man's body?
They won't, and guess what? I'm not going to teach them that the world is flat or that you're Mexican either. What are you going to do about it? Get DCFS involved?
Hell yes, we're gonna take your kids.
Hell yes, we're going to take your kids. All of my children are smarter than you, Robert. If you try taking them, it would be like Home Alone, except with children who aren't neglected, and a burglar who steals from the entire middle class at once instead of select gated communities. Good gaga, folks.
Well, I may not be able to round those kids up and separate them from their parents, but I sure know who can.
Thank you for calling the Department of Child Services. Para español, oprima dos.
Reporte de abuso infantil. ¿Cuál es su urgencia?
Yes. Este persona lives at, House de Tree.
Señor, no le puedo entender.
Arbol.
Oh my goodness. It's just like, this is pretty much what Beto is. House del Tree.
Oh, I was waiting for that Spanish part.
Yeah. It's just like, Senor? No. Senor. Oh, and also, for those who are checking in, because tonight is a big hockey game here in Alberta, the Oilers are winning 3-2. I have a coworker who's actually at that game. He won tickets this afternoon, and I was kind of jealous. Because I'm like, that's one game that I'd actually want to go to. Because I'd be like, Dad, cancel your plans. Because my dad's a huge Oilers fan. And I know that he'd be like, yes, I'm canceling all my plans to go to this game. I'm like, yeah, you would. You would definitely cancel all your plans to go to that game. But my team got out of the playoffs because the NHL is corrupt. Yep. They're corrupt. Can't allow Toronto to get past the first round, my butt. I'm holding a grudge. Anyways, but talking back to Beto O'Rourke, kind of circling back, as Pisaki says, or said,
Not more.
because Pisaki now works for MSNBC. Basically doing the same thing she was doing for the Democrat Party, just now she's paid
Getting
purposely
paid
to
more.
lie. And get, yes, paid more.
You know how much more? So
No.
I looked it up because I was curious. She made $181,000 a year as the press secretary.
Okay.
She signed a deal with MSNBC for $13 million a year to go to MSNBC. So that is a big jump in.
That's a massive, like, why would you pay her that much? She's not that intelligent.
People love Chucky.
They love Peppermint
She
Patty.
play all day.
She is Peppermint
I
Patty.
don't
She will
know,
always
is she
be
gonna have
Peppermint
her
Patty.
own show, or is she gonna like co-host with something? I haven't looked too far into what.
I have
she's gonna
no
be
idea.
doing. I figure she's probably gonna have her own show called
Oh.
Stupid People.
Yeah.
Circle Back, I think, would be a great.
Circle
name.
back
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Saki.
Yep.
Yeah.
Circle Back with Saki.
Yep. Oh my goodness. Anyways, enough about that horrid woman. But yeah, these Democrats, these establishment figures, they will take any opportunity they can to try and take advantage of a bad situation. Like I can give some credence to most conservatives, most Republicans. They're just like, we're going to analyze the situation, but we're not going to use this to try and push a political agenda. We're not going to try and be like, like even if the guy was an illegal immigrant, we'd be like, okay, let's honor the victims, like try and have some unity around this combined this tragedy which we all are enduring and we're all suffering through. And then after a period of time, it's like, okay, can we have a discussion about illegal immigration and the levels of crimes that they commit? It's like, there is a period of time in which it's not okay to try and use an incident, use a tragedy to try and exploit the emotions of the American or the Canadian or the people of the world.
Well, that's the problem with Democrats and liberals in general, that they can never let a tragedy not help them. They can never let a good tragedy go to waste, as they say. They have to, as soon as it happens, they have to get on the bandwagon of, we're going to use it. We're going to use everything about this. They did it with the Buffalo shooter. As soon as he was a white guy, they jumped on it. As soon as they found out he had the N-word wrote on his barrel of his gun, they jumped on it. There's no lengths that a liberal will not go to not utilize a tragedy to the best of their propaganda abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Don't smoke. Smoking's bad for you.
Yet you continue to practice it. No, there was a guy who had this stream of comments and he's like, why aren't you reading this? And it's just like, because we're having a conversation and I'm not like using Twitch as my like, people don't get that. It's just like, I'm not using only one streaming platform. I have 4 streaming platforms that I'm currently using all at the same time. And so saying and be like, oh, you aren't looking at this chat. It's like, because I'm trying to be involved in the conversation or I'm answering a question on another feed.
And
like,
I only have 2 eyes.
Exactly. I only have 2 eyes and I only have 1 monitor. If I had 2 monitors, then I could be like, okay, one is for like making sure the feed is good and the stream is good, and another for monitoring the chat. I don't. Like, most of the time, Danny is monitoring most of the chat, and so I can handle all the techie stuff. But Danny's away this week, and I'm like, I'm not going to ask Johnny to monitor my chats.
Oh, yeah. You don't want me monitoring the chat.
Exactly.
That is
Things will go
not a
real
good
bad
idea.
real fast.
Real quick. Yeah.
So, but that's basically going to be the end of today's show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. For those who are involved in any of the chats on Twitch and Facebook. I don't think we had too many comments on Facebook, but we had a bunch on Twitch. Thank you. And keep coming back. If you're following us on our other video platforms, such as BitChute, YouTube, and Rumble, then, of course, like, share, comment, subscribe, the whole kit and caboodle. Following us on our text platforms, such as Twitter, Facebook, Gitter, and Twitter. You know the deal. Echo, like, comment, tell us how we're doing. Tell us how we can improve. If you want to comment and interact with Johnny, how can they do that?
Well, I'm kicked off of most of the platforms. The Johnny Ray Show on Facebook, I think, is the only one that's still active. I've been permanently banned off Twitter, so I'm completely off Twitter. I tried to start a new one just to see if I could edge my way in.
Yep.
And they were like,
It's like, I know what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm pretty much done on Twitter. I don't think I'm ever gonna. I was hoping Elon would get me a pass, but I'm still waiting on the email back. But otherwise, they can go to Right Side Films Co. on YouTube. Keep up with the videos that I put out behind the scenes and stuff for the TV show and the production company. And then you can always search up old episodes of the Johnny Ray Show right here on YouTube and on the YouTube, as Bernie Sanders says. So you can pretty much find me anywhere, the Johnny Ray Show. If I'm on the platform, you can find me there.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. So we will see, or at least I will see, everybody else on Tuesday for Tuesday News Day. Danny will be back for Tuesday. So fret not. Mr. Senior Sweetness will return with his antiquated and weird style of humor that is not always appropriate. But he will return. And we hope to have Johnny back sometime in the future. He's now officially our most frequent guest. And we always love to have him. The conversations are always phenomenal. So we'll see you then. And as always, from here at the Shrewd Dudes